yes.
Okay, I would like to call the Monday, May 16th, 2022 Orange Board of Education meeting to order at 7:04. Can we stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Betty, would you be kind enough to read the mission statement, please?
The Orange Elementary School District recognizes that the education of each child is the shared responsibility of every member of our community. Our goal is to inspire and empower each student to achieve academic excellence, embrace social and individual responsibility, and lead with integrity. We believe all individuals should be valued and treated with respect. Together, we will make a difference.
Thank you very much. I don't believe we have any public participation. Is that correct? Very well. Consent agenda. I need a motion to accept the items under the consent agenda. The items are the regular session minutes from the April 18th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the April 18th, 2022 Board of Education meeting?
So moved.
Susan, second? Ken? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Superintendent's report. Dr. Scarpetti, would you be kind enough to?
Good evening, Mr. Crow and the rest of the board members. Believe it or not, a month from today will be the last day of school for our students. As shared in previous board updates, the schools are bustling with end-of-year events that have been absent since the pandemic. Students, staff, and parents have welcomed the festivities back and look forward to the remaining events that will occur, such as the 5th and 6th grade Olympics, field day, class trips, music concerts, and promotion ceremonies. One of those events that have occurred that have been absent is actually the SCAZA, which stands for the South Central Area Superintendent's Award for our students. The award was based on community service to others, academic prowess relative to ability, and leadership to the school community. The students who were honored at that event were from Peck Place School, Peyton Brown and Charles Sakowitz. At Racebrook School, Olivia Huber and Luke Richard. Turkey Hill School, Lee Ramsauer and Jake Alvarez. And if I could take a quick moment to acknowledge students that went through our system and now that are at Amity. At the middle school was Remy Chiambrello, she's in grade 8, and Marcello Germay, grade 8. And at Amity High School was Francis Cavallero, better known as Frankie, who was from Racebrook School. So we want to extend a congratulations once again. Here was another event that, in the absence of the pandemic, we would just give the awards to our students, but we had a lovely luncheon where the parents attended, the principal, so again, a great event to honor our students. Speaking of honorees, each year the Orange Senior Center recognizes 3 Orange Senior residents who have dedicated themselves to the Orange community. This year the residents are Donald Clark, Marianne Miller, and the last person who I would like to highlight is Mr. Ralph Oakenquist. Not negating Mr. Clark or Ms. Miller and all their contribution, I just want to highlight Mr. Oakenquist because since I've been here and prior to the arrival, he's worked with us collaboratively with the Capital Planning Committee. He's such a gentleman. You know, at times he feels saddened when we can't get everything that we've asked. And that just bridges to the first selectman, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, everything that has been granted us just recently. I've asked Mr. Gray in the report for facilities to report on what we just received recently. I know I've sent an email to all of you, but again, congratulations to all of those honorees, but specifically Mr. Oakenquist. In addition, another event that has occurred, which was quite exciting, is our retirees. We acknowledged 5 retirees at Racebrook Country Club, When I spoke, I joked it's kind of nice to get together socially instead of at a Wednesday meeting where we're talking about curriculum work or social emotional learning or anything to do with the school system. Before honoring those that retired, the one thing I also said to them, which I like to acknowledge again, is, and I've done this at other meetings that we've had, is I think sometimes where we are, we've forgotten where we were, especially during the pandemic, and how much we've advanced and have grown. This is a saying that I think all of us have heard, and I think this not only pertains to the relationships that you create at work, but your own personal relationships. It's not a matter of when the good times, but it's a matter of the tough and challenging times when the relationship and the true person has shown themselves. And I can't say enough about our staff and all of you and the entire community, how we've been supported. And this echoes with the people that have been honored. So again, if you would entertain me, I'd like to acknowledge the people that have retired. And again, some of these people have retired during the pandemic. This was the first time we were able to acknowledge them publicly, and again, in a forum of a nice party for them. So Lisa Kaplan, after 25 years of service, she's retiring. Betsy Vogel, 32 years of service from Peck Place School. Mary Rose Corkindale, 33 years of service. That's along with Karen Peterson. She also served 33 years. Eileen Young, 34 and a half years. And a name that we all know, Ann Fleming, 54 years. So again, we want to thank them for their service to the Orange community. And when I put my speech together, I was trying to say something a little bit about each person, but what I found interesting in the files is the questions they asked back in 1966. Some was like, your height and weight, don't know why they needed that. But the other piece that I was joking specifically with Ann, saying that was 54 years, I asked everyone that was attending. So as you know, Ann served 54 years. The question was, how long do you plan to work at in Orange? And so people were shouting out, 20 years, 30 years. And she wrote down 3 years. Now, I don't know what she thought about back then. She couldn't remember. But just a funny thing, but she served 54 years. But again, congratulations to all of you. We wish them well. There were a lot of retirees that attended that meeting. I think the only good thing with that is they look 10 years younger, so they're going to be tasting a little fountain of youth with that. With regards to the budget, since we last met, the following meetings occurred. On April 21st, we had the Orangetown budget hearing. On May 11th was the Orange Annual Town meeting, which was last week. And I would ask everyone watching at home to make note that the Orangetown referendum is on May 18th, and we ask you to go out and vote. Personnel updates. The negotiating committee met last Tuesday with the cafeteria bargaining group and settled on a tentative agreement which will be brought in front of the board at next month's board meeting. I want to thank for the cafeteria workers and actually the negotiating committee for the time and for settling quickly but thoroughly. It was one of those moments where we're so appreciative of all our workers, but to get together specifically in a concise way, it helps out tremendously. So again, thanks to everyone who's contributed to that. We are still in the process of negotiating with the administrative assistants and paras, and we will begin negotiations with the security monitors, and I think the tentative date is on June 14th. We've had postings up. I've shared that with all the board in the board update. One that I know I've received questions on is the principal position at Marielle Tracy School. We did send a survey out. That closed. We'll be looking at what the shareholders have put in response to that and looking at it from that lens, looking at the applicants that have applied. Other than that, Mr. Kraut, that ends my report.
Any questions for Dr. Scarpetti? Go ahead, Betty.
Dr. Scarpetti, will you be sending out the dates for all these special events to board members who may be able to attend?
Yes, so with that, yes, Mrs. Halleck, we will. Again, expect invitations specifically to the promotion ceremonies that usually come out from the principals. But yes, those will be coming out.
Is there going to be a SOAR celebration?
Thanks for bringing that up.
As opposed to DARE celebration?
Thanks for bringing that up, Mrs. Hadlock. So the one thing that Detective Nepper and Detective Bailey shared with me recently is they polled their students, and what other districts have done through the police department is instead of having a graduation ceremony, they had an ice cream festivity. And so that's what they're doing instead. It's just for the students to attend, but that's the direction that Detective Nevert and Detective Bailey vocalized.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else for Dr. Scarpetti? All right. Mr. Gray?
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with the finance and operations, and I'll begin with grants, grant update. With our American Rescue Plan Individuals with Disability Education Act Part B grant, this is a $72,921 grant that we received. We will receive that amount this year, and we will receive the same amount next year. To date, $8,000 has been committed for in-person professional development centered around restorative practices. Restorative practices provide students and adults with an intentional, inclusive, and respectful way of thinking about, talking about, and responding to issues or problems that arise. We also have an SR2, which is the Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Grant. This is SR2, Special Education Recovery Grant. This is a 2-year grant with one amount spread over the 2 years. That's $60,200. This grant is intended to assist school districts with addressing delayed, interrupted, suspended, or inaccessible IEP supports and services for students. To date, $6,750 has been committed for training to provide supplemental services in the form of tutoring for those students experiencing challenges due to dyslexia. And $30,000 has recently been committed for job-embedded support, coaching, modeling, co-teaching, and instructional refinement. We also have 2 other grants, SR2 and SR3, again, Emergency Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds. Our SR2 grant was a $164,000 allocation, and to date, $38,000 of that was spent on the summer programming last year. We also used some of our SR3 allocation, which was $326,000, and we used $94,000 last year for the summer programming. We're in the process of figuring out how much we're going to be using from those grants for this year's summer programming and determining how much will be left to spend in the subsequent years. As Dr. Scarpetti mentioned before, we've had the fortune of dealing collaboratively with our Board of Finance and our Board of Selectmen here in town, again, namely Mr. Oakenquist, through the capital planning. And earlier in the budget season, they took upon themselves the Chromebooks, internet bandwidth, and school safety and security upgrades for capital planning. We recently found out that they will also be taking on the flooring repair at Racebrook School. That was part of our capital plan. The ceiling tile repair at Turkey Hill School. That was part of our plan. And finally, each year in our capital plan, we have a cycle of replacing 5 of our interactive boards in the classrooms. They will be purchasing 25 of those for us this year. So that comes to a grand total of $362,712. And we really do appreciate the partnership that we have with the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, and we appreciate them doing that for us. And finally, as mentioned in last month's report, earlier in the month, we received and accepted $27,169 in supply chain assistance funds to purchase unprocessed and minimally processed American source food products for school nutrition program. This is from USDA, and they allocated these funds to alleviate supply chain disruptions in the school meal programs. These funds are currently being used this month. They can be used in June, and then they'll be able to be used when we come back in the beginning of the fall. And that concludes my finance and operations report.
Any questions for Mr. Gray? Okay,
And
next.
then facilities.
Sure, thanks.
In facilities, I just wanted to share several small projects that we will have taking place throughout the district. Here at the Board of Education, the entrance steps leading into the board offices, many of you have probably seen the one step that's kind of sunken down, and it causes a bit of a tripping hazard and puddles when it rains out. I'm in the process of planning a date to have that demolished and repaired, so it makes a much nicer step into the building. The Peck Place School, we will be installing another gate in the fence at the rear of the parking lot. Right now, there is one gate That allows vehicles to enter into the back parking lot of Peck Place School when they have larger events, similar, sort of like the promotion ceremonies. The problem is if there's ever an emergency and you have all those cars in there, there's only one exit, so we're putting another gate in there to allow another egress out of that lot. It will also help with summer programming. We ran into this last year where they drop off in the back and there's a really tight turnaround area. This will allow cars a much larger turnaround radius to come in and quickly exit, and it makes it safer for everyone. Last month, I believe I discussed the bus GPS system, which is housed in the firehouse next door. And that is a system that is used currently by the school district and also by the police department to monitor our school buses throughout town. It was housed in the attic, which is not an ideal environment. So we actually just recently, last week, had that relocated. So the computer hardware piece of that is now located in our mainframe room downstairs, and a new antenna was installed on the gymnasium roof here at MLT. So now we have it in-house, and it's much easier to take control of and to maintain. And finally, the custodial supplies. We recently placed our final school year supply order and have also ordered all of our summer supplies so that we have them on hand, because we are noticing certain items are out of stock and there's a wait time for them. I'm happy to say that the summer items did come in, so as soon as school is out, we'll be able to hit the ground running. 2 of our schools will house summer programming this summer, here at Marielle Tracy and also at Peck Place School. So to ensure that they're ready to accept students in the fall, we're really going to have to be strategic in how we're planning and scheduling our cleaning of our buildings this year. We're going to do it very similar to last year, so I'm not worried about being ready.
Any questions for Mr. Gray? Tatiana?
Mr. Gray, I don't know if this is a question more for you or for Dr. Russo more, but with the summer learning program being housed at Peck Place School, is it going to be a similar situation where parents go around the roundabout and drop off and there will be aides in taking the kids in, or is it a situation where the parents will be walking their kids into the school?
So actually, I believe that would probably be a question for Dr.
Dr.
Russo
Russo.
and maybe Mrs. Lasto, but I believe the last I had heard from Ms. Lasto would probably be the same, because it worked out really well.
Okay.
And that new gate will be installed by then. I'm hoping to have that installed before July, and it'll make it much easier to drop off and pick up.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
The new gate at Peck, was that a recommendation from the fire department, or are you just thinking that's going to make it a little easier?
It's something that we had discussed. Dr. Scarpetti and I were out there one day, and we had discussed that it'd probably be a great idea to have that, because in the bigger events, when they do park back there, it's really tough
I agree.
to get out of there. So in the event of an emergency, you really do want another egress point to be able to get out.
Yeah, good idea.
Anyone else? Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Gray. Curriculum, Dr. Russo?
Good evening. I'll start my update with summer learning updates. 2 reminders regarding the registration deadline were sent to all parents prior to registration. Classes were created to accommodate all students on wait lists, so no one was denied participation. We are in the process of creating our class rosters, assigning the instructors, assigning the rooms, prescribing reading and math interventions for students who are currently receiving Tier 2 and Tier 3 services based on our SRBI data to make sure that we continue to differentiate for those students to ameliorate any gaps that they may currently have. And then by June 13th, we'll email families procedures and confirmations of their sessions and of the drop-off procedures. We are looking into a digital drop-off tool, but we're not sure if we're going to use that. We're looking at that. We still have to solidify those drop-off and pickup procedures. We learned a lot from what we did last year. Mr. Gray was kind. The first 3 days were tough, but we revisited our practices and we updated what we did, and that gate will definitely help. And then we plan to train our staff for summer learning sessions. And we will send home with anyone who signed up a label with the 3 sessions, because that worked really well. Students knew exactly where they had to go. After a few days, we'll speed up that process this time. As far as smarter, balanced assessments, we are finished. Everything ran smoothly. We may have very few makeups to do, but not many. There were no technical challenges. So same thing with the Next Generation Science exam for 5th graders. That's all done at all the schools. As far as our orange curriculum, we shared with the curriculum subcommittee that we will be posting our Stage 1 from Rubicon Atlas curriculum on the website. We hope to have that all finished by the end of August, when everyone returns to school. And what would that include? What would that look like? As we shared with curriculum subcommittee members, bundled standards by unit, the unpacking of those standards with the content and the skills, essential questions, and some possible contexts for the learning. As far as teacher evaluation, the Connecticut State Department of Education has asked members of district professional development evaluation committees, or PDEC, to decide whether or not to engage in flexibilities for the 22-23 school year. Our orange members met and unanimously agreed to continue with the evaluation flexibilities. And so we will provide that response to the Connecticut State Department of Education before that October deadline. We refreshed the memories of the curriculum subcommittee members with our current process, the goals and the objectives that are shared with teachers so that they can consider for their goals. And then finally, since the PDEC committee was together, they went through the calendar and helped to select the dates for professional learning for all grade levels next year, and also to identify the focus for those Wednesday curriculum meetings so that we can include those on the professional learning calendar and share them with staff prior to their summer vacation. And then we did discuss a little bit about the Orange Bicentennial, but I believe Mr. Zyman and Mrs. Hadlock will share information on that. And that ends my report.
Any questions? Go ahead, Tatiana.
Dr. Russo, did I hear you say that all school, end-of-the-year school assessments have been completed thus far? Is that what you indicated, or did I miss?
For the smarter balance,
Gotcha.
but not our own internal benchmarks.
Okay, thank you
Just
for that
smarter balance. I'm
clarification.
sorry if that wasn't clear.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the information about the summer learning program. I'm just curious, I don't know if you said this and I missed it, how many students actually did enroll? Or an approximation?
So I don't have the exact numbers. I can get that back to you, but off the top of my head, I remember that there are 142 coming week 1. So it's different by week, but we'll definitely get that information. We do have ranges of sessions, the smallest 27 sessions of a certain topic, like Kung Fu, but the reason why that is small is because it's only offered 1 week. But up to 205 sessions, for example, of PE K through 2, 158 for PE 3 through 6, and we're really happy about that because for supporting the initiatives of health and well-being, those classes were all free to students, and so we're excited about them moving around in between some of the academic and enriching activities.
And will there be any food provided during this? I mean, I know there's school lunch during the school years. Will there be any food or people bringing their own snacks or
For students who are staying a full day, so we have 3 morning sessions, the 8:30 to 9:20, the first session, 9:30 to 10:20, and then 10:30 to 11:20. Those students will go home. Some of them are coming for 3 sessions, some are just coming for 1 session, some are coming for the later, some are sleeping late, coming for the later 2, some are coming early. But obviously, if anybody wants to bring a snack, they can bring a snack like during the school day. But for the students who are staying for the 11:30 to 2:30 session, they are definitely bringing their lunch.
Okay, so
And-
lunch is not being provided or
No,
anything?
but
No.
is that something cafeteria can do with the summer free? Okay.
Okay,
We'll
thank
talk
you.
about other possibilities.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Special Services, Mrs. Ito?
Good evening, everyone. July 1st is approaching quickly, and this marks the date of Connecticut's required new individual education plan system, CT-SEDS, or the Connecticut Special Education Data Systems. We successfully completed our first upload to the state in preparation for the rollover to this new system. As a side note, it is important to understand that the legal requirements of the Individual Disability Education Act, IDEA, has not changed. The new document will assist the state in streamlining reporting requirements and more seamlessly assist in transferring Connecticut students to a new district when they move from district to district within the state, as well as supporting districts from being compliant with the legal expectations around special education. Families and other interested parties can visit our website to view a side-by-side version of the current IEP system to the new IEP system, and information about the new document will be shared with families in the beginning of the school year and prior to the child's planning and placement team meeting. So we will support families as we transition to the new document to ensure that they understand how to interpret and read it, since it is a different view. On another note, we have staff for our Extended School Year program, or ESY, and are now working on scheduling the students who are eligible for this service. Families will be notified of their child's schedule around mid-June, or that June 13th date, so that it matches what Dr. Russo reported for the summer programming. Finally, you may recall from the beginning of the year, the district was awarded a grant to operate Primary Project for our 3rd year of implementation. The Primary Project allows for eligible children in grades K through 3 a play-based way to personally connect to a caring adult. Children are considered for services based on teacher survey results and input, as well as parental feedback. This year, 100 children were serviced by our child associate, who are overseen by our school social worker and our school psychologist. Data has been shared with parents and teachers, and we are happy to report this evidence supports beneficial results. We are also pleased to share that parent feedback continues to be positive. As a result, we are looking forward to continuing to educate our families and teachers about the benefits of Primary Project and to continue the program next school year. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Mrs. Ito? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. We will move on to board business. Turkey Hill Track, Dr. Scarpetti, you want to give us an update on that?
Thank you, Mr. Kraut. So there was a link on the agenda that showed a form that schools need to fill out. It's part of policy 3280. And board members, that's basically saying that if a PTO or anyone for that matter is gifting something to a school, if it's under a certain amount, that goes to my approval. If it's over a certain amount, the board has to approve. And since it's over $2,000 and equating to $26,900 to have a track established at Turkey Hill School, it has to go in front of the entire board. So at this time, Mr. Kraut, we will be looking for a motion for the board to approve that the Turkey Hill track be installed at Turkey Hill School.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. So do they have the funding?
They do, sir.
All right. For those of you that don't know, there is an existing track, but it's made of stone dust. They'll actually be paving it.
Oh, that was going to be my question. Is it going to be
Yeah.
more gravel, or is it going to be an
No, no, no,
actual
no.
asphalt
No,
and
it'd be
paved?
similar to what they have at Racebrook. Racebrook has a paved track, so they're going to pave over the stone there.
And special thanks, Mr. Kraut made some time along with Mr. Gray and two members of the town to look at the plans that were submitted. So, Mr. Kraut, thank you for taking the time to give your expertise on this, too.
Not a problem, but they've also consulted with the town engineer, Mr. Demerjen at the town.
Mike,
And
Mr.
we're
Gray,
good
we're
with-
all set with that, correct?
We're good with the selectmen. So, does anyone else have any other questions about the track or anything specifically?
Just
Go
one.
ahead, Ken.
So there's already been a quote, and this, a very specific amount of money that you mentioned, there's been a quote already?
There is for $26,900. Dr. Arterbury put in that they've earmarked $28,000, so that tells me they've raised $28,000 in funds. This has been an ongoing discussion. The Fathers Club actually started this initiative, and then when they weren't able to raise enough funds, that continued through other PTO fundraisers, which they finally were able to hit that amount.
Thank you.
And I believe it's my understanding, Mr. Gray, they got they got three bids. Yeah, so they did. Go ahead, Susan.
I just had a question on all the safety of it as well and liability. If it's going to be open to the public, do we have any kind of concerns, et cetera?
So, right now, currently, it's open to the public. After 6 PM, because we do have the school grounds until 6 PM because of 21st Century, that includes our playgrounds.
Right.
So those are exclusive use of 21st Century students. After 6 PM, our buildings are open, our grounds are open. Quite frankly, it's actually going to be safer paved with asphalt than it is currently, because there are portions of it that are a little bit rutted, and, so, and it does get used extensively through PE class, and also at recess time. So we want it to be a more appropriate surface for the students.
So we're engaging with, as it's getting done, making sure that it's to our satisfaction, not just to the PTOs.
And that's the
And I think the
discuss.
PTSO is important, and
Yep,
that's very
yep.
generous of them to donate it, but I want to make sure that you and others are involved.
Right, and I had a discussion just the other day with the contractor about making sure that there are no tripping hazards with the elevation of the track and whatnot, so.
Right, whether it's
Yes.
for handicap, or people that need special access as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we discussed with the town engineer and Mr. Demerjen the details of the bids and, water and the whole 9 yards, so, go ahead.
So is it safe to assume that maintenance of this is similar to what we're already maintaining with the gravel track?
So it's similar to what Racebrook has, is they have a paved track, but we do not plow the track. We don't do anything like that. In the wintertime, it's just not used, because you don't want to go and start tearing up any of the pavement with a plow. So there's really no maintenance that's done to it. It's actually lower maintenance than the cinders that are currently there, to be honest with you. I will say that the Park and Rec Department and Mr. Small, they do a great job. They come out a couple of times a year and they regrade it for us and they take all the ruts out of it. So, thank you to them for doing that. We won't have to do that anymore.
Anyone else? Do you have a time frame, Mike, when,
It's probably going to be in July.
July? Okay. Anyone else?
I have one more.
Go ahead, Sue.
So we're anticipating it's going to be in July, and so therefore it will be finished and completed before the children are back in school.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Anything? All right, so then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the installation of a asphalt track at Turkey Hill School. Do I have a motion? Susan, second? Betty? Any further discussion on it? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Very well, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We have a policy second read, 6112, school day. I am looking for a motion to accept policy 6112 as presented. Do I have a motion? Ronette? Second? Susan? Any further discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? First read, 4118.231, 4218.231, smoking, drinking, and use of drugs on the premises. This is a first read. Policy first read, 511, admission and placement. Policy first read, 6114, emergencies and disaster preparedness. These are all first reads, so I would ask you all to review them over the next few weeks. If you have any questions, obviously contact Mrs. Hadlock, Dr. Scarpetti, or myself, because they will be coming up as a second read on the June meeting, right? June. All right. After we go through standing committees and the ACES report, I will be looking for a motion to go into executive session. We have to have a possible action on a parent's request for early admission to school pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 10-15C. Moving on to standing committees. Finance and Operations, Ms. Riccio.
The Finance and Operations Subcommittee met prior to this meeting. Everything's in line. We are spending under budget right now, and we should be coming in right where we're supposed to be.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Riccio? Okay. Personnel Policy, Transportation, Mrs. Hadlock.
I'm going to, Mr. Ziman is going to speak about the recent meeting because I was not in attendance and he ran the meeting. So I first of all want to thank him very much for doing that.
The committee did a wonderful job. Our first policy was academic freedom. We had some thoughts from board members to be added, and we discussed the policy as it was on the agenda. Since Mrs. Hadlock wanted to weigh in, we held it over till this month's meeting. The next three policies were reviewed and revised, and they were presented tonight as first reads. Dr. Scarpetti and Dr. Russo gave a personnel update. A survey has been sent to parents. The results will be used to help in the Marielle Tracy principal search. The BOE has been interviewing interns for placement in our schools. If interns aren't available, in addition, 3 permanent district subs may be hired to fill the void. And all of my information that I faithfully wrote down about negotiations are now obsolete because, so that ends my report.
Any questions for Mr. Ziman? Okay. Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Cap.
Good evening. We met we met back on Tuesday, May 3rd. Mr. Gray pretty much summed up everything that we did at our short meeting that we had. The only thing I can add in addition is that we did cover some of the building security items, and we're going to continue to have that meeting in about 2 weeks, I believe it is. But that's it to report on for right now.
Any questions for Mr. Cap? Well, we're in for a treat. So is a TV audience. Mr. Ziman, twice in one night.
Twice.
Twice.
I was going to say this is my Mike Gray moment, but then I realized that Susan also gives 2 reports, so. Last year, Governor Lamont signed into law Public Act 21-2, which mandates that the Connecticut Board of Education provide curricula across the educational spectrum to supplement, not supplant, existing local curriculum. The first phase was rolled out in April, but is primarily aimed at older grades. I mention this only because I saw a quote from the Connecticut State Department of Education Chief Academic Officer Irene Parisi, who said this will be created by teachers for teachers, and will contain high-quality academic content to match the diversity and needs of all our students. That's fine, but it reminded me that for the last few years, the Orange school system, under Drs. Scarpetti and Russo, and with the enthusiastic support and participation of all our teachers, has done just that. Traditionally, a group of administrators and teachers creates the curriculum, and that is then passed down to the bulk of the teachers. However, with our teachers actually doing the bundling and unpacking of the state standards themselves, they have a much greater understanding of and comfort with the new curriculum. By internalizing the curriculum in this way, they are, among other things, better able to differentiate instruction to serve all our children. That being said, you must understand that I lost my place. Okay, it moved. Okay. Well, anyway, it was, I can go on without it. I did so well. I have to tell you, we were at the airport to come home from Grand Cayman, and somebody there had all their information, the testing, on the phone. And they lost it. They couldn't find it. They must have been there 15 minutes, at least standing there. They did make it on the plane because they were on ours, but nonetheless, it was pretty exciting, and that's just what happened here. Well, so much for that. Okay, where was I? Okay. Marielle, Tracy's, no, we did that. I'm sorry. I'm coming.
Boarding
I
flight
got it.
421.
I got it. I'm back. Okay. Oh, yeah. We're justifiably proud of the curriculum that has been created, and we are in the process, I'm sorry about that, of putting our entire curriculum by grade level on the website. This requires a lot of work and time, but we expect to have it completed soon. Dr. Russo spoke about the physical education health curriculum. In grades 4 and 5, that includes selected YouTube videos, and the boys and girls view them separately. Every parent receives a letter letting them know that these classes will be taking place, and should they wish, they may opt their child out. The Orange Professional, I didn't realize it was called PDEC. I was very impressed. Anyway, they decided that the teacher's input will only make these sessions more meaningful. So they gave all teachers a questionnaire used to help determine topics they would find most helpful and to determine the best ways and times to hold these PD sessions. In an unrelated matter, Dr. Russo wanted to remind everyone that the district spelling bee is on June 1st. Lastly, in celebration of the Orange Bicentennial, there is a shelf in each of the school libraries devoted to displaying books about Orange. And that brings me to Ms. Hadlock. Though I must apologize, I'll get better at this for next meeting.
As far as the Bicentennial Celebration, one thing that I will be sharing with Dr. Russo is the dates of many of the wonderful activities that will be taking place through the Orange Historical Society that are specifically designed for families and children to participate in. I did not bring that list of dates with me, but I know there's one in August, there's one two in July, and also there are many other activities, but the Historical Society is doing things that are really going to be very family-centered, and hopefully people will take advantage of that. The electronic bookshelf, is that what I should call it, is being set up for each school, which will have a number of resources that have been, that Dr. Russo and I and Ginny Reinhardt, president of the Historical Society, have gotten together for the students to use, and we're excited about that. So hopefully we'll see many families participating in events all summer long and learning a lot about the town's very unique and interesting history.
Does that conclude the report, Mr. Ziman?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Ziman or Mrs. Hadlock? Would it be possible to post some of these events or all those events on our website? Is that what we're going to do?
Absolutely, Mr. Crow.
Yes? Okay,
Mr.
great.
Gray and I actually met with Mr. O'Sullivan last week sometime to discuss those things. I believe Mrs. Hadlock, he's actually the chair of or is he one of the chairs?
Yeah, he's the chair of the entire operation for the Bicentennial, but I know that there are some events that weren't included. I mean, there's many different lists of events, and they're not, I haven't seen one that is totally inclusive of every single group in the town's activities, but I will be sure to send the Historical Society one so you can include that.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's see, where are we here? Susan, ACES.
Thank you. ACES met on Thursday, May 12th. Unfortunately, it had to be via Zoom because we had some COVID cases. We didn't want our board to be infected, basically. But we had a good meeting. Some good news is that we do have a contract with the town of Hamden to purchase 670 Wintergreen Avenue. So we're very happy about that, so that our Wintergreen Interdistrict Magnet School can go back to that building. They originally needed it because they thought they were going to do something within Hamden, and then they realized that they didn't have enough students to justify the size of that building, and they can incorporate things differently. So we were happy that it worked out this way because it's a great building for us and for the children at the magnet school. So that's a plan that they'll be back there in the fall. But we still have to sign some things, but we are under contract, so that's good news. More good news is that ACES is holding summer school sessions at Amity High School for high school students that need makeup classes, so if they've missed something. There are some that are virtual. There are many of them that are also in person. So if you're interested and you need that, you need to work through your high school, as well as you can check out aces.org. Couple other things is ACES is currently operating at a surplus, not a huge surplus, but it is a surplus, which is always good. So the cost of whether it's the magnet schools or for special schools will either be maintained or go down, as the case may be. We did approve a few policies, and we have had quite a bit of discussion about social and emotional learning and support for children. We are seeing a little bit more challenging behaviors in their typical schools, and really want to make sure that they get all the support they need, and so that there's obviously less problems, less drama as well. So overall, things are going great, and ACES is not meeting in July and August unless we have a special one to sign a contract. Just saying.
2 months, that's nice. Any questions for Susan? Very well. All right, so I'm going to be looking for a motion to enter into an executive session. Dr. Scarpetti, I believe you will be joining us.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
No, sir.
Very well. So I will be looking for a motion for the Orange Board of Education to enter into executive session for item number 6. Betty? Susan? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? We are in executive session. 7:53. 7:53. Thank you, Susan.